Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Got three really interesting plants that we're going to discuss this week. Two from the Spring Foraging Cookbook, you should be looking for right now, obviously, and one from the Medicinal Shrubs book. And what's great about these this week is they're all both edible and medicinal. So even though they're from two different books that I've written, and one's devoted to foraging and the other to medicinal uses, these fit both categories really well, so you can enjoy learning about these. Now, before I get into that, got a little bit of an announcement. You may remember, 4 years ago or so, when I started this channel, I had just been kicked off of Facebook for suggesting that the COVID-19 virus came from a bioweapons lab in Wuhan, China. They called me a racist and kicked me off the platform. I'm not sure what was racial about that. China happens to be a country, after all, that has a very active bioweapons program, and they boast about it. So, I still don't understand why that was politically incorrect. I was one of the first people to say it, though, so I took the fall. And yeah, that was fun. And of course, now everybody knows that's where the COVID-19 virus came from. The FBI says it, the intelligence agencies say it, the health agencies are reluctantly admitting it. It was not from people eating bats, and everybody knew that. Okay. This is, I mean, for one thing, I mean, so ridiculous to call me a racist because anybody who knows me knows what a love I have of Chinese culture. I mean, I grew up studying Kung Fu and Tai Chi and Chi Chuan and Tai Chi Chuan and Qi Gong and studied traditional Chinese medicine for years. I absolutely love Chinese food. I like the art. But this area that it came from is, I think, in the Guangdong region. They have one of the best food cultures in the world. I mean, if you like Hunan style Chinese food, really hot and spicy, this is where you go to get the most hot and spicy. And yeah, they have, wet markets and traditional culture where they do eat a lot of wild fish and game and a lot of interesting forage vegetables and mushrooms. It's not nasty, it's not dirty. It's been done this way for literally thousands of years, and they know what they're doing. So the minute someone said this came from a wet market in China because they eat all this weird stuff, I'm like, yeah, that's a load of crap. I know that's not true. I mean, I actually used to communicate with some people that lived in Guangdong, and it was all about the food. And I mean, it's really one of the most sophisticated food cultures on the face of the earth. And just because, Americans have gotten away from our roots of eating wild fish and game doesn't mean it's something nasty. I mean, that actually is how I prefer to eat, and it is the most healthy way to eat. And there happens to be a bioweapons lab sitting right there. So I thought, hey, what's more likely? Yeah, and got called a racist for it for some reason I still can't figure out. You know, if I said a virus came from somewhere in England, would I be racist toward people of English heritage? No, no one would even accuse me of that. So it was a load of crap from the beginning, and I was, pretty angry about it at the time. But like, 2 weeks later, I got kicked off of YouTube for making fun of Tony Fauci, comparing him to yogurt on Spaceballs. I mean, the guy said, "I am science." You couldn't question him. That's not how science works. You start with the hypothesis and you test it. You actually have to question to actually have legitimate science. So it was a tough time, and of course it was right on the heels of January 6th, and everybody was freaking out, and social media platforms were being closed down, and anybody that was conservative or anybody that questioned the government in any way, all those liberals that had bumper stickers on their cars that said if you think you can trust the government, just ask any Indian. That used to be real big. Questioning the government was real big in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2010s, teens, among people on the left. Remember? That was sort of like their rallying cry was, question the government, don't go blindly into war and all that kind of stuff. And the corporations are running everything. Remember Occupy Wall Street, where the corporations are running everything and Wall Street's taking all your money and getting rich. And as soon as Biden came into office, it was do not question the government. You are not allowed to question the supreme ruler. The corporations that make the vaccines and the masks they're your best friends, and you can't question the science. You can't question a doctor or medical care. I mean, that's why all the RFK Jr. folks who were Democrats are now Republicans because he didn't change positions. He said, I'm questioning vaccines, I'm questioning the pharmaceutical industry, and he just kept right on doing it. Ditto Naomi Wolf, and I think Dr. Peter McCullough, and oh gosh, there's another one around the tip of my tongue. Yeah, anyway, so many of these people who were diehard Democrats. I'm not sure if McCullough was or not. It's Robert Malone, Dr. Robert Malone. So what I was thinking, these were liberal Democrats became Trump Republicans because the entire philosophy of the liberal side of the political spectrum flipped on a dime. And because these people actually have integrity, they couldn't go along with it. I mean, just look at the news today. The left, liberals loved electric cars. I mean, I've never thought they were a very good idea. I mean, because most of the electricity in this country is generated by coal-fired plants. So an electric car is just swapping out gasoline for coal, essentially. To me, it never made any sense at all. But 4 years ago, oh, you had to get an electric car. You had to do that to save the environment. And Elon Musk was the hero of the left, of the liberals, of the Democrats, whatever you want to call him. I mean, he was their hero. I mean, he's the guy that can build rockets and go rescue astronauts in outer space. I mean, he can do all this wonderful stuff, right? And now they're attacking Tesla dealerships, burning cars, pulling old women out and beating them in the face, and having anti-Elon Musk protests simply because he switched to the side of the aisle as well, and because he's actually trying to save the taxpayers some money by finding waste, fraud, and abuse. Explain that to me. I mean, when did Democrats become the party of what, theft, fraud, abuse? I mean, and I always said, nothing matters more to a liberal than killing babies. But now they're, I mean, what more of the Ten Commandments are they going to decide that they're advocating against? Thou shalt not steal, and I mean, first it was thou shalt not kill, and then it's thou shalt not steal, and of course, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no gods before me, and they worship government. It's just my opinion. If you don't like it, whatever, I don't care. I've been doing this show for over 4 years now, and I've been vindicated on every single issue. Isn't that something? And you know how I know I've been vindicated? Well, here's one good reason. YouTube let me back on. Facebook let me back on. Yeah, the Southern Appalachian Herb Podcast is back on Facebook and YouTube. I reluctantly went with it, but I said, hey, that's an audience out there. People need this information. So you can find me on Facebook if you want to. Just Judson Carroll, pretty darn easy to find. On YouTube, the channel is Judson Carroll again, but I think it's officially at Judson Carroll 5902. And I am posting about 10 Southern Appalachian herb podcasts there a day or every evening, really, when, it's the evening after supper and I'm just sitting there watching television or something. I just start uploading. It takes a long time. So having recorded, 250 some episodes, it's going to take a while. And then I got to get the Uncensored Catholic podcast up there. Some of the Herbal Medicine for Preppers podcasts that go through the Prepper Broadcasting Network actually uploaded up there automatically without my even knowing it. I think it was, I don't know. I'm not sure if it was supposed to go to their channel, if it went to both of our channels. I didn't actually know I had a channel at that point because it actually took me quite a while to find out they had reinstated me. And I had to do the facial verification and all that crap. But anyway, oh golly, my foot's cramping up. I guess I need some magnesium in my diet. I must be, yeah, maybe I do. Come to think of it, time to get out there and forage for some wild plants. Spring plants have a ton of magnesium, so that'll take care of that. But let's see, or potassium, that's what I meant to say, potassium. Well, both. Both are very high in wild plants, and actually both do help with cramping. So magnesium and potassium is what I need. So anyway, I am posting back to YouTube, and I started a new project, which is just kind of fun. Y'all know, I mean, you hear me playing guitar at the beginning of the show. Grew up in the mountains of North Carolina, following Doc Watson around. Really got heavily into Piedmont blues. And Piedmont blues is not a style a lot of people play anymore. I mean, it was once the acoustic finger picking style, finger style playing that was most prominent in the Carolinas, through Georgia, certainly, really from coastal Virginia all the way down to Tampa, Florida. Now everybody thinks of Delta blues or they think of Chicago blues, which is a much different style. Piedmont blues is a much more gentle style. It's more intricate picking, usually done with bare fingers, almost always done with bare fingers, or maybe a thumb pick. Usually lighthearted, humorous songs, but it's blues as well. And I mean, I love the stuff. I grew up on it. The Probably the most famous one from North Carolina was Elizabeth Cotton. So I started with a couple of her songs, and I posted them on YouTube. So I've got Freight Train and Baby It Ain't No Lie posted. Just posted that today. I'll put a link to it in the show notes so you can check it out if you want. It's just for fun. If you want to listen to me pick, if you want to, learn to play these songs, I try to get a good close-up of my hands so you can see what I'm doing. It is a very technical style, but once you get it, it comes about as naturally as breathing. And, well, I mean, I've been doing it for 30 years, so, it does for me anyway. I may try to incorporate some harmonica into it as well, get my old harmonica rack out and play harmonica while I play guitar and sing. Or can't play harmonica while you sing, but you can do it while you play guitar, alternate. But anyway, so now that I've done a couple of Elizabeth Cotton songs, I'm actually going to switch a little bit and do some Mississippi John Hurt, because his style, even though he's from Mississippi, Avalon, Mississippi, very, very similar to Piedmont and very influenced by Piedmont style, as equally as he was by like Charlie Patton and actually the Carter family and Jimmy Rogers and such as that. He had a very unique style of Mississippi blues, and he was like best friends with Doc Watson. So growing up, I learned a ton of Mississippi John Hurt songs through Doc Watson. So to me, that's as authentically Piedmont blues as anything. And I also got to meet and hang out with and learn from Etta Baker, another famous guitar player from North Carolina. And so after that, I'll do some Etta Baker music, and then I'll get a little further into the past. We'll probably do some Blind Blake. Blind Blake probably came from somewhere between Florida and Georgia. Nobody really knows, but he really made his career in North Carolina and Virginia. And Blind Boy Fuller, he was actually from Wadesboro, North Carolina. So this music is absolutely as indigenous to my region as bluegrass, as old time, as rockabilly and rock and roll. I mean, you want to hear some of the first rockabilly music? Look up Arthur Smith from North Carolina. Did a tune called Guitar Boogie, and I mean that was rock and roll before rock and roll was even known. Link Ray, amazing guitar player. Link Ray was from North Carolina, right around the Benson area. He did Rumble. Oh man, that's classic. And I mean, it keeps getting used these to this day in music and television. I mean, a couple of Quentin Tarantino movies and such. I hate that. I hate Quentin Tarantino movies, but great soundtracks. Dude knows his music. Um, anyway, uh, North Carolina really very influential, of course, in music history. So, I mean, the great banjo player Earl Scruggs was from here. Don Williams was from here, the songwriter and singer. Um, what Kay Campbell, right? Was it, is that who I'm trying to think of? College of Musical Knowledge. No, it's the ooh. Anyway, he was from the Chapel Hill area. One of the great big bands of the 30s and 40s. Gosh, that's gonna bug me. Um, he did a bunch of movies too, very funny movies. And of course, Andy Griffith was from here, and Randy Travis, and oh gosh, so very many. Charlie Daniels, of course, was from North Carolina. His family was actually grew up just down the road from where my family was from, and I mean I could go on for ages about North Carolina musicians, really from all genres. Maceo Parker of James Brown's band was from here. George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, was from North Carolina. Yeah, I mean it's crazy how many just phenomenal musicians came from here, and all genres. A lot of gospel music. I mean, if you ever want to go to a really cool event, very family friendly, there's a gospel sing up in Benson, North Carolina. It's just kind of northeast of Raleigh, and it's been going on for over 100 years. I mean, all these church groups come from, black and white and Indian churches and whatever from all over the state and really all over the eastern seaboard. And they put on just a phenomenal festival of music, and it's really nice. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into our herbs. And we will start with the Spring Foraging Cookbook, which of course you can buy on Amazon or directly from me, however you want it. And let's see, what is our herb for today? It is going to be Sweet Cicely. Now, actually, the two we're going to do from here are herbs that aren't much used today, or these are both herbs and wild plants, edible plants, but were really popular in Europe 100, 200 years ago. Still used in some cultures. These you really want to seek these out, and you might want to grow them in the garden even because they are really very tasty and actually quite good for you. The first is Sweet Cicely, and the roots of the plant smell like anise. Like, what does anise smell like? Well, anise smells like licorice. In fact, 99% of the licorice candy you buy today is flavored with anise, not actual licorice. Really hard to get real licorice. You almost have to get like the Swedish version that's like not sweet and it's actually sometimes salty. And I love that stuff, really. But if you like that flavor, definitely check out Sweet Cicely. It's kind of almost like a cross between licorice and fennel, actually. So, fennel's that flavor you get in Italian sausage. Another one of my favorite flavors. And they make a really, both those plants make a great addition to roasted meat, soups, etc. And, for no apparent reason, Sweet Cicely's kind of fallen out of use. It was once a common herb planted in people's gardens. So probably isn't native to America. It was probably got out of the gardens of the early settlers. In our ancestors' time, even just common food, just food of the poor, had a lot more flavor. I mean, I've got the old cookbooks going back up to 2,000 years. They used a lot more herbs and spices than we use today. It's not what you think of when you think of old-fashioned food. Like I've said before, our concept of what our ancestors ate is actually very much shaped by the Great Depression and scarcity during wars, whether it was rationing in World Wars One and Two or the Civil War where everybody was starving. It's not what the early settlers ate or what their ancestors were eating in England and Italy and Spain. And, I mean, obviously we know what kind of food they still eat in Italy and Spain and France. It's pretty darn good stuff. And people didn't stop eating that way just because they got on a boat and crossed an ocean. Um, the I mean, we had just incredible ports in North America, and there were spices and herbs coming in from all over the world. That's one of the reasons why Louisiana cuisine is so well known, is because it was an international port. So our great grandparents really just didn't have the money to buy the exotic ingredients that their grandparents used. So we kind of think of food differently now than it was just a few generations ago. And yeah, sweet Cicely would absolutely have been really in everybody's kitchen and growing it in the garden. So after that scarcity of, from the say the Civil War through the Great Depression and the World Wars, the demand just stopped. People had gotten out of the habit of cooking that way. We've gone a few generations of not having all those herbs and spices, so grocers stopped carrying it, farmers stopped growing it. So, contrast the idea of food today with this little entry from Gerard in 1500, the herbalist Gerard. He called it Miris and Canilla, I don't know. He talks about how Pliny the Elder mentioned all that. But anyway, by his time, it was known as Sweet Cicely or Chervil. And Chervil is actually a relative of Sweet Cicely, and sometimes it was called Sweet Chervil. So anyway, he said, it is held to be one of the pot herbs. It is pleasant to the stomach and taste. It is of a temperate heat and a moderate dryness, but nothing so much as parsley. It provoketh urine, especially being boiled in wine and applied hot to the nethermost part of the belly. The wine drunk and the wine drunk in which it was boiled. So you would boil the herb in there, use it as a poultice, and then drink the wine that you boiled it in. It hath a certain wildness by means of which it procureth lust. He actually thought it was an aphrodisiac. Who knows? It is used very much among the Dutch people in a kind of hot pot, which they call warmus. The leaves of sweet chervil or sweet Cicely are exceedingly good, wholesome, and pleasant among other salad herbs, giving the taste of aniseed unto the rest. The root, saith Galen, is hot in the second degree. Dioscorides teacheth that the root drunk in wine is a remedy against the bitings of venomous spiders, and that it bringeth down the menses and secundines, it stimulates menstruation, and being boiled and drunk is good for such as have consumption of the lungs. The seeds, eaten as a salad, I guess in a salad, while they are yet green, with oil, vinegar, and pepper, exceed all other salads by many degrees, both in pleasantness of taste, sweetness of smell, wholesomeness for the cold and feeble stomach. The roots likewise make a most excellent salad, if they be boiled and served as the cunning cook knoweth how better than myself. Notwithstanding, I do not eat them with oil and vinegar, being first boiled. No. Notwithstanding, I do use. It's Old English. It's hard to get. Anyway, he ate them with being boiled with vinegar and oil. He said it was very good for old people that are dull and without courage. It rejoiceth and comforteth the heart and increases their lust and strength. So amazing. Imagine this wonderful herb that is apparently better than any other salad green. And the roots are nice, large enough they can be eaten as you would, parsnips or something. And just fell out of favor. Well, it's growing probably wild somewhere near your house. So get out and find it, learn to use it. I love the stuff. I really do. And another one that's probably even more, has more lore to it in herbal medicine and in cooking is tansy. Now, tansy is an herb, I got to advise caution, used in small amounts. It is a delicious culinary herb. In fact, tansy and rue were really among the signature flavors. They also used asafoetida and different things. What do they call it? Laser. It's a cousin to asafoetida that may have gone extinct because they ate it out of existence. They think they have found some. In fact, the plant has been rediscovered in recent years. They're trying to bring it back. If you get Apicius's cookbook, tansy, rue, and laser or asafoetida, make it into just about every single dish. I mean, these are really the signature flavors of ancient Roman cuisine, which was very, very sophisticated. Very, very sophisticated. What we think of as modern French cooking really comes from the cooking of ancient Rome. I mean classical French cooking, not modern. I'm talking like Escoffier and such. Definitely has its roots in ancient Roman cooking. They knew how to cook and eat. They really did. But both tansy and rue can be very toxic in larger amounts, like what we would call medicinal doses, tinctures, or eating a ton of it. A little bit here and there as a seasoning. It's fine, I say with a caveat. I'm going to say Use with care. Some people say don't eat them at all. I eat them. I think they're just fine. Okay. A large amount can cause a miscarriage and even kill the person eating it, but it's not an herb I think you should fear. In fact, most of the mints, and especially pennyroyal and water mint, and several other herbs can be very dangerous in large quantities or as essential oils, and almost all of them can be very dangerous during pregnancy. Um, so I don't worry about it. I quite like tansy. It kind of tastes a bit like sage, but it has its own unique qualities. Almost tastes a bit like yarrow or yarrow leaf, but again, different. It's hard to explain. I would not eat a salad of tansy. It's very strong. I will use a pinch or two in cooking. So, in researching this book, I ran across an entry in Wikipedia. It has a recipe. I haven't had a chance to try it yet. I do have Hannah Glass's cookbook. What was Hannah Glass's cookbook? The American Housewife or something like that. It was one of the first two cookbooks written in America. Hers is really more of an English cookbook, whereas the Virginia Housewife is really the first truly American cookbook, and that was written by Mary Randolph, a distant relative, ancestor of mine. But the Complete Housewife. No, let me see. The Good Housewife's Handbook, The Complete Housewife. It goes by several titles, but anyway, Hannah Glass, Glasse, and but anyway, I love collecting old cookbooks. So, and the Tansy's coming into flower about now, so I'm gonna see if I can find this one and try it out. But anyway, the Wikipedia said tansy was a traditional Easter food in English cuisine. It came from the Tanacetum vulgare plant. The simplest version of this recipe was made by baking by baking a batter flavored with green tansy juice, the actual juice of the plant. Later recipes, like the one from the 16th century Good Housewife's Handbook, added more ingredients like parsley, feverfew, violets, and egg to a batter that was fried like pancakes. So these are actually herbal pancakes, which I think sounds pretty darn good, really. I mean, again, going back to Chinese food, you ever had those scallion pancakes? They're phenomenal. You can make pancakes that aren't sweet, and this would be one. So Hannah Glass used tansy, parsley, feverfew, and violets to an egg and flour batter, and it gave it a slightly green coloring from the addition of tansy and other herbs. Baked tansy could also be given a green color by adding spinach juice. An 18th century recipe from the Complete Housewife added sack, that's sherry, basically, dry sack, as it's called sometimes, to the batter and sweetened the fried tansy with gooseberries as a topping and crushed sugar. So you can make this actually somewhat bitter herbal pancake and sweeten it up a little bit with some sherry and gooseberries and crushed sugar. Now I don't have that big much of a sweet tooth, but I want to try that. They mentioned that cakes and wines were very common features of Easter traditions. Some 19th century authors believed that the tradition of eating tansy cakes, which had a sweet and bitter flavor, was connected to Jewish traditions of eating cakes made with bitter herbs. Sometimes the tansy was closer to a pudding than a pancake, like Hannah Glass's 18th century in The Art of Cookery. Yes, that's the name I was trying to remember, The Art of Cookery, which was an elaborate dish with Naples biscuits, butter, cream, blanched almonds, eggs, grated bread, rose water, orange blossom water, and other spices and sweeteners. See, that's the way our ancestors used to celebrate Easter. They were not eating bland food or store-bought cookies. They were making elaborate, complexly flavored dishes. That's why I love collecting old cookbooks and trying those recipes, whether it's Apicius or Hannah Glass or Mary Randolph, or another really good one is The Carolina Housewife. That was written by the daughter of one of the signers of the Declaration down in Charleston. Amazing to read that and see how similar the food in Charleston, South Carolina, was to Louisiana around New Orleans. The Creole food is much part of my culture. And if you really want the best book on Creole cooking, and I do have some great ones, some really old ones, but the best, the classic, is the Picayune Times Creole Cookbook from 1900. You want to see how my family cooked, my great grandparents? Get the Picayune Times Creole Cookbook, and yeah, it'll totally change your idea of how people were eating around in the 1800s. It'll totally change. If you think they were eating, just bland meat and potatoes and maybe some sourdough bread, you could not be further from the truth. And I actually kind of got into a debate with some people on Facebook last night. I could not believe how ignorant they were of historical food. I mean, they literally thought all food was like dangerous, poisonous, spoiled, and not sophisticated at all. And I'm just like, y'all ever read a piece? I mean, did y'all ever read Escoffier? He wrote the Guide Culinaire in what, 1820 it was published? This is more what our ancestors were eating. And I mean, that was the most popular cookbook, not just in France, but in England. And when our ancestors came to America, they were cooking very much in that style. And of course, German food was very sophisticated. Swiss food was, and Spanish and Italian. And really, the only ones that really came here eating bad food. Um, well, slaves, of course, I mean, obviously, but they brought with them incredible recipes. It's where we get our jambalaya and gumbo and such. We get that from African culture. So as soon as they got here, they started cooking good food. But the Irish, that came over during the potato famine. I mean, the English forced the Irish to grow potatoes only. They weren't allowed to grow any other food. Um, they were all of Ireland was essentially enslaved by England, and when the potato blight hit, half of Ireland starved to death, and those who were able to escape and come to America came with just the clothes on their backs. And that may be another reason we think of food as being very simple and bland, because they had nothing, absolutely nothing. Um, but that wasn't traditional Irish food. No, that was food after the English starved them to death. Uh, what are you going to do? So, and even England, as bad a rep as English food gets, they do some great recipes. Good English roast beef, Yorkshire pudding. They know how to make a gravy traditionally. And I mean, yeah, it's just, our modern concept of food is so different from what the reality is. And again, a lot of that has to do with people listening to government recommendations and the government convincing people that, food used to be so dangerous and unhealthy. Um, Actually, a lot of that was spawned by Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle, which you probably had to read in high school. And yeah, it was disgusting. He admitted he made the whole thing up. He was a communist. He wanted to support labor unions and government regulation of food. So he made it all up. you know? But yeah, we have our government agencies for health and food, and all those regulations are spawned really by his fictional book, The Jungle. And he was quoted as saying, I aim for their heart and hit them in the stomach. So there you have it. Anyway, I guess we can question things now again, can't we? Thank God for that. In the medicinal book, medicinal shrubs and woody vines, uh, this is hazelnut, probably my favorite nut. I love hazelnut. Grew up on them. Filberts were always in the house. I guess we had some on the property. Um, really good. So, 17 varieties of hazel have documented use in herbal medicine. I'm not going to name them all, but it's all the Corylus species. That is Corylus, also known as hazelnut or filbert. You don't see them called filberts much anymore, but that's what they were called when I was a kid. Um, which several nuts had different names back then, some of which were I wouldn't be able to say on air these days. Um, two varieties are native to my region. American hazelnut, that's Corylus americanus, and Corylus carinata beaked hazelnut. So these are actually native plants. You should be able to get them growing in just about any climate, other than a desert. But maybe even there with deep mulch, you might be able to do it. So, used medicinally for centuries, going back to Dioscorides, he said he thought they were worthless for the stomach. He did not think they were a good nutritional nut. We, of course, now know they are. But he would pound them into small pieces and take them as a drink with honey. Essentially, he made a hazelnut milk, blending in honey and water, and he used it as a cure for coughs. Roasted and eaten with a little pepper, they digest dripping fluids, and burnt whole, pounded into small pieces with goose grease or bear grease, and rubbed on, they restore hair that has fallen out from alopecia or baldness. So actually a cure for baldness. I don't know if that works. Um, Fortunately, I have my hair so ridiculously thick you would not believe it. The Irish and French genes really come through very, very strongly in my hair. I have a ton of hair. Um, so he says that some say the shells burnt and pounded into small pieces together with oil makes the pupils of gray-eyed children black if their forehead is moistened with it. I sincerely doubt that. And I actually haven't, very rare to see anyone with gray eyes. I knew some folks from Argentina. Um, they were in the wine business, and very beautiful girl. You see this sometimes in that area. I think it was Argentina or Chile. I can't remember. Chile, whatever. Anyway, she was of Spanish descent, a little mixed heritage there, but gray green eyes and red hair with sort of a tan skin. Very beautiful, very wealthy. These people were millionaires. Anyway, Galen wrote of hazelnuts. Hazelnuts newly gathered and not as yet dry contain in them a certain superfluous moisture, by reason of which they are windy. In other words, he thought they gave you gas. So in Greece and Rome, they weren't big on eating hazelnuts. We now know better on that one. Um, he said they were troublesome to the stomach and caused a headache if they were fresh. So he said the kernels of the nuts made into a milk like almonds. Believe it or not, yeah, the ancient Greeks and Romans made almond milk. I know you think that's probably a new invention. It's not by any means. I still don't like the stuff, but yeah, yeah, they did, and they used it medicinally. They said it would bind the belly and are good for the lasc and bloody flux or bloody diarrhea, so serious diarrhea. The same doth cool exceedingly in hot fevers. This is Galen. This can't be Galen. This has got to be Gerard. It's Gerard. Yeah, this is Elizabethan English, so that was the giveaway on that. Um, let's see. The same doth cool exceedingly in hot fevers and burning agues. Those are fevers. The catkins of the plant are cold and dry, and likewise binding, and they also stay the last. You can gather catkins right now, so that's the little kind of feathery male part of the flower that's hanging down on the trees. The same is true of hickory nut and several others, walnut. The kernels of the nut rather cause than cure the bloody flux and lascs. Therefore, they are not to be used in such stomach diseases. And an Irish herbal thought a little bit more of them. John Kehoe, writing in the late 1700s, a decoction in mead cures an old cough. If roasted and taken with a little pepper, they are beneficial for catarrh and runny nose or eyes. Catarrh is congestion. If burnt and applied with hog's lard, they cure a scald. Brother Aloysius in the German tradition says, these are of the catkins. He used the catkins specifically medicinally. He says these are the male flowers of the hazel tree. They are long, full, hanging catkins which grow in groups of 3 or more on young branches. They have a medicinal use. They are gathered in the flowering period, dried, and stored in a dry place. This is an exceeding remedy for pneumonia. In particular, it causes sweating. It is also highly recommended for influenza. A princess once wrote me as follows: my 6 children were cured from influenza in a few days by tea from hazel catkins. The sweat broke out after 1 cup. So gather them, dry them, keep them. It's this really good remedy. Botany in a Day, getting up to modern use, says medicinally the oil from the nut is said to be a gentle remedy for pinworms and threadworm infections in babies and small children. The leaves and bark are astringent. And Plants for a Future says medicinal use of American hazel. A tea made from the bark is astringent. It was used in the treatment of hives and fevers. A poultice made from the bark is used to close cuts and wounds, treat tumors, old sores, etc. Medicinal use of the beaked hazel and infusion of the branches and leaves has been used in the treatment of heart complaints and intestinal disorders. A decoction of the bark has been given to children to alleviate teething pain. And finally, Peterson Field Guide for Eastern and Central Medicinal Plants says American Indians drank bark tea for hives, fevers, and as an astringent. Bark poultice used to close cuts and wounds, treat tumors, old sores, and skin cancers. Twig hairs were used by American Indians and historically by physicians to expel worms. So you could see, I think hazelnuts, filberts, whatever you want to call them, are fantastic. Like I said, it's one of my favorite nuts. These days, most people only know it as a flavoring coffee, hazelnut coffee. If you like that flavor, you're going to love hazelnuts. And I grew up just eating them by the handful. They never caused me stomach problems. They did not do what, Dioscorides and Galen thought would happen. No, they're actually quite healthy, very good for you. Plenty of fiber, somewhat astringent, just a good general all-around nut food. You can grind them, you can put them in breads, you can make like loaves out of them. You can make hazelnut butter. You can grind them and add in a good oil or something, a little sugar, make a peanut butter. If you like Nutella is chocolate and hazelnut spread. It used to be better than it is now. Nutella has changed owners and changed formulas from what I understand. It does taste different than it did when I was a kid. It's still delicious and like one of my absolute weaknesses. So I never buy Nutella. If I did, I'd be 400 pounds because I cannot. I mean, I eat it with a spoon. I cannot put it down once I get started. I mean, that is like, yeah, you give me some Nutella and maybe a nice green apple and a glass of red wine. And I mean, I can't stop. I mean, serious. That is like, and I don't have that much of a sweet tooth. That's my weakness, you know. My favorite, absolute favorite candy. It's a chocolate from Italy. It's Perugino Baci. That's a chocolate and hazelnut candy. I just love that combination. Ferrero Rocher, I think that's what used to be French. It may be owned by an American company now. I can't remember. That's a hazelnut. So, I mean, you're probably very familiar with this flavor. What you probably didn't know is you can grow them really easily in your yard, and they're absolutely the best hedge plant. If you want to grow a hedge around your house that doesn't need a ton of pruning, that'll grow thick enough to keep people and even deer from walking through it, plant hazelnuts. And every time you have a low branch, you can pin it to the ground, it'll root there and grow another bush. So you can literally propagate an entire hedge off of one or two hazelnut bushes. And you can get the native varieties or you can get European varieties. I think there's a couple of Asian ones. Fantastic plant. Fantastic plant. In fact, all three of these are just really neat, really interesting, as tasty as they are medicinal. So y'all, if you want to hear me pick a little old Piedmont blues, check out my YouTube channel. Otherwise, just be glad we are in a new era, and the last 4 years of censorship and hatred and division have finally passed, and we're free again. We're free again. Isn't that amazing? to actually value freedom as opposed to oppressive government control. Wow, it's a very different time, and I, for one, am incredibly glad. And as always, you don't have to agree with me on politics or anything else that I say. Listen to my disclaimer always, but that's certainly my belief, and I am very, very happy and just hoping everything goes well, and we can keep this going for another 8 to 12 years, and things will finally change. We can go back to being a free, prosperous nation, the nation that our grandparents knew, the nation that the baby boomers were born into and then destroyed for some reason that no one understands. Where families stayed together and the father could get a job and the wife didn't have to work if she didn't want to. She could raise the kids. She could work at home. In other words, be a stay-at-home mother. One income could buy a home, put food on the table, cars in the driveway, and money in the bank. And there'd be retirement and there'd be inheritance and money left over for the next generation. One generation, the baby boomers generation, destroyed everything that had been built up for almost 200 years before and left their kids and grandkids a dystopian future where no one can even afford to get married and have a house. I mean, it's ridiculous. And God willing, and all the regulations prohibiting people from doing everything that just everybody took for granted a generation earlier. I mean, God willing, we can get back to that, because this nation especially, but I mean, in Europe, the world's gone nuts over the past few years. Gone completely totalitarian fascist nuts. And fascism is actually, government and corporate control of the people of a nation. We have the opposite now. This is freedom, and thank God for that. All right, y'all, have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.